Hi there and welcome to tutorial 34. This is another request, one of many requests, and today we're going to be looking at Simple Minds, Don't You Forget About Me, which was recorded for the film soundtrack Breakfast Club. So the first sound that we're going to be looking at is the electric bass sound that goes something like this. And we're going to be adding that to a basic drum track later on, but first I'll show you how to get that bass sound. So we're going to go on to the initial patch, and that's just an initial setup of one oscillator. Oscillator 1 needs to be a 32-foot pitch, and it's a pulse waveform, and the pulse width of that is 92. Now the great thing about the pulse waveform is that you've got lots of different harmonics that come in as you move away from square and increase the percentage of pulse. So that's a value of 92. That's it, and it's a kind of a very thin, reedy sound, which is strange to say that it's going to become a bass sound. But we need to put in oscillator 2 now. And oscillator 2 is also at 32-foot pitch on a pulse waveform, and the pulse width this time is going to be 85. So we've now got a combination of oscillator 1 and 2 doing a slightly different pulse waveform with different harmonics in. And then we'll move over to the filter section. And we've got a low pass 24 dB cutoff filter, and here the filter is going to be 0. Now it might be a good idea actually if I start this time with the amplifier envelope rather than the filter. So let's have a look at the amplifier envelope. Velocity 0, doesn't have to be any velocity at all, and attack 0, decay 91. 91, sustain 0, and a little bit of release 13. Okay, it's still quite a buzzy sound that we're getting there, but the sound will decay just like a bass guitar would to 0. So let's have a look at the filter envelope, and the amount of filter envelope is 41. And you won't hear anything until I start to move the actual cutoff frequency. But attack time 0, decay 76. There we are. Sustain 59. So what that does is still opens the filter a certain amount, even though the sound is decaying away here, and the release 0. Now, as I move the cutoff frequency down, that's how we get the bass sound. So it's filtered off a lot of the harmonics, but obviously it's opening up according to the envelope here. We need a little bit of resonance on there. 22. Ooh, there we are, 22. And key track 64. And that gives us our bass sound, which we're going to add to the track. So the next sound we're going to look at is the sort of pad sound, and the pad has been recreated by the pulse wave, but now we're going to modulate the pulse wave by the LFO. So we need a sine wave on the LFO, and we need this to adjust pulse width modulation. In fact, let's just have a quick listen to the sound that it makes first of all. That's the sort of pad sound that we're after. And it's reminiscent of a string sound, of course, as well, but a bit more subtle. So we'll go over to our initial setting, and we want to set up the that modulation for pulse width modulation, and we need a speed of 36, and a depth of 39. Okay, now oscillator 1 is 16 foot, on the pulse waveform, and we need a pulse width here of 83. Now 83% actually becomes the central point for the pulse width modulation from the LFO. Okay, so if we were to take that off at second, it's a bit like turning the knob like that. But back to 83 and back to our setting of 39 there. To get the thickness of sound, we need oscillator 2 as well, 16-foot waveform, and we need a pulse width of 51. Again, that becomes the central point of the pulse width modulation. We need a detune of 11. So we're getting a really rich sort of sound from that. And oscillator 3 is going to be 16 foot, and we need a pulse width of 18. There we are. And a detune of plus 11. So now we're getting really quite a thick effect, and if I play that chord again, you can hear that it's a rich sound going on there. We need to filter that sound. Low pass filter, 24 dB slope, cut off 85. This is going to make it quite mellow. 85, there we are. And key track 94, that means that it'll open up a little bit at the top of the keyboard. 94. Okay, the amplifier envelope, we don't need to adjust the filter envelope at all. That's going to be amount 0. Velocity 0, attack time 71. This is going to give us our fade into the sound. Now if we put the attack time all the way up, it takes a long time to fade in, but the time we need for this track is 71. We don't want it to stop immediately, we want the release time to be 77. There we are. And just to add to the ambience of the sound, a bit of reverb. Reverb time 80. And level 63. So that gives us our sound, which we'll add to the track. Now we're going to be looking at the stab kind of sound. Sorry. We're going to be using a brassy type sound plus a sound from the wavetable. So we're going to start with the initial setting, and this time I'm going to start with oscillators 2 and 3 to provide a sawtooth waveform that's going to give a kind of a brassy sound. So 16 foot here, and a slight bit of detune. So -6 here, and plus 10 here. So that gives us our kind of our start for a brassy kind of sound, but we're also going to add a wavetable sound to that as well. And here's the wavetable. And we've got number 5 on the wavetable. In fact, we'll take out the brassy sound so you can hear that. There's number 5 on the wavetable, and here's the actual wave itself, which is wave 44. 44, there we are. And it's a kind of an organy sound, but it's rich in high harmonics. So when we add that to the other oscillators, we get a really nice balanced sort of sound. And all the oscillators are on the same level. We also need to do a bit of vibrato on that, so we're going to set up the wheel in the modulation section, and the wheel is going to apply to oscillators 1, 2 and 3 on a sine wave, a bit of wobble, speed 51 and depth 18. That means that when I press or I use the wheel, we get some of the modulation which we need. So over to the filter section, and it's a low pass filter of 24 dB slope, cut off 46. So it sounds like I've cut off virtually the entire sound there, but we've got some resonance 28, key track 91. There we are. Now when we set up the filter envelope, amount 33, it's letting some of the sound through. And because the default setting, so on 33 there, because the default setting is attack 0, you know, and a bit of decay there, we're getting a percussive sound. What we need is a kind of a brassy sound, so attack 44, decay 85, sustain 88, bring it to 88 there, and a bit of release. I'm going to put a lot of release on this to start with, but you won't be able to hear that until I adjust the amplifier envelope. So amplifier envelope, velocity 0, attack 0, sustain 127, release 68. And that's our sound. Which we'll add to the track.